Welcome in, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens, to Shield's Rest. I'm Brown.
And I'm Fry.
Today we're going to be covering a newer gaming system known as DC20. We're going to be taking a look at the playtest rules which are available online, and we're going to put that link in the description below.
For those who may be unfamiliar with DC20, the Kickstarter was launched in 2024, which was fully funded within about 1 minute. Earned 500K at the end of the day and 1 million within 2 weeks, and ultimately ending in around July, it had funded 2.2 million. Currently, it's planned for a late 2025 release.
Right, and so let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Dungeons and Dragons. Now, that's a game that became very popular, and a lot of people caught on to this, over the last few years. So we may make many references to Dungeons and Dragons or also Daggerheart. If you've watched our channel before, we do cover content from both of those gaming systems as well. And so, what we're going to try to do throughout this series is also share our opinions, feedback, and also maybe make specific mentions and points of reference to those other campaigns and systems that we've played, just so that can help viewers understand and kind of learn the differences of all the systems at the same time. This game is currently in a 0.8 beta, though changes for 0.9 are in the works and quickly approaching. While there's no current official release date for 0.9 just yet, we do know that it's going to consist of at least 2 subclasses per 13 classes, so 26 subclasses in total. It's also anticipated to discuss leveling up all the way through 4th level, and also is hinted to maybe have a rework of the initiative system as it currently is.
And if you want to receive more information or get more involved with the process that's moving along with DC20, you can check out their Discord and their Patreon in the links below the video. At the Patreon, that also includes a monthly magazine that gives you kind of sneak peeks of what's coming along in the future.
One of those sneak peeks or magazines also covers a class, the Scion class. So that will not be listed in the playtest rules as we move through this and as you see that. But I'm understanding that as those magazines and future content comes out, there may be other subclasses or classes within those as well. So definitely some value added there. And again, go check out the Dungeon Coach and what he's doing with the DC20 system. I know I'm really excited about it, and that's kind of what prompted us to start the series. So hopefully you can come to love DC20 as much as I do. So, as I mentioned, we're going to make references to other systems. So for this, Dungeons and Dragons 5e and Daggerheart both use attribute systems that consist of 6 different attributes. And you'll see here with DC20, they don't use 6, they use 4. And it's broken down into 2 different categories, right? So your physical and your mental. So right here in the DC20 playtest rules, you can scroll down here to the attributes. And you can see here that for might, this is what you would typically expect it to be. This covers your health, your endurance, your strength, things of that nature. Also has some play in being able to utilize heavy weapons and heavy armor, increase your maximum health points, so similar to Constitution in that aspect. And then your typical lifting, pushing, dragging, etc. And also the saves that go along with those might-related saves. Agility, as we know, represents avoidance, dexterity, finesse, things of that nature, and then applies directly to those ranged weapons. There are whips in this game, which are really cool. Other special weapons that might have agility requirements. It's also part of your physical defense, so just like in Dungeons and Dragons, how your dexterity calculates into the formula for your armor score, this does a similar thing there. And then also, again, saves for agility. And that is what constitutes the physical category of the attributes. What I really like about this is that it simplifies the attribute system without taking anything away from the game or the experience of the game.
And then on the flip side, we're going to do your mental abilities. Those are your charisma and your intelligence. The similarities between the two are they both going to add to what's called your mystical defense. They're also going to add bonuses to your language checks made with languages that you may have limited fluency with or may not know at all. For charisma specifically, it gives you a number of grit points, which are kind of a defensive tool we'll cover in a later episode. They're also used for your social skill checks, such as influencing other creatures or gaining insight into their actions or behaviors. And finally, it'll be used to resist against effects that will alter your emotions or your will. For intelligence, they're going to give you a number of bonus skill points to spend on different skills, which again we'll cover in a later episode. Also from specific knowledge checks like nature, religion, history, and things of that nature. And finally, used to resist abilities that are trying to alter your memories, confuse you, or deceive your senses. What I really like about this is that it gives those stats kind of more meaning besides just a casting stat or skill modifier. It actually contributes to your character as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah, this is really great stuff as we're reading through it here. Again, some of this stuff is kind of, not typical, but, what you are familiar with from other systems. And so I think these specifically are easier to understand. It's mostly just that verbal change and reference to, might instead of constitution, and things like that. So uh, we'll just jump right into the next part of this, which is the starting attributes. So we all know and love the character system side of the systems, right? So this is your typical, when you start a new character, your methods for being able to set your attributes. So in DC20, we have these options here. There are 3 options. So I'll let Fry talk about the first few.
First up, we have standard array. Most of us probably familiar with that if you're coming from Dungeons and Dragons. This is where it gives you a set stat spread. So for standard array, the stat spread is a 3, a 1, a 0, and a -2. Additionally, you're going to have point buy. Again, coming from Dungeons and Dragons, you're probably familiar with this. Um, I kind of think of this more as like a min-maxing tool. So what you'll do is all your stats will start from -2, and then you'll have 12 kind of floating points that you can bump any of your ability scores up to a maximum of 3. So it gives you slightly more flexibility. For instance, you could take 2 scores to 3 and setting other scores to or having more negative attributes. And then finally, we have the roll method, which I'll Brown discuss here.
Yep. So with the roll method, that's what I personally like to use in other systems when I play a character. I like to let the dice decide, right? So I roll the number, and no matter what it is, I'm going to take that because, it just adds that aspect to the game that we all love. Whatever the outcome of the dice is helps drive the story, helps drive the character. Now, if you've already got a certain character in mind, obviously this may not be the best method, unless you want to have fun with it. But this is a good way to just start any character. So what DC20 does here is they allow you to use a 1d6 minus 3 calculation for each of those 4 stats. So we're going to simplify that to 4d6 minus 3 off of each of those, right? And then you also get 2 attribute points to whichever you want and increase those. So we have right now we're just going to do like a sample roll, right? See what we get. So on the screen here, we roll 5, 5, 2, 4. You minus 3 from all of those, so we actually end up with 2, 2, 1, and -1. So in that situation, we did not get any 3s, right? Which we didn't directly talk about it, but in the playtest rules, at the starting level, the max skill that you're allowed to have at level 1 is 3. So, you obviously want to shoot for that, most likely, but in my case, I did not get a 3. Totally fine, but I could also either add those +2 somewhere to give those a 3, or there is a sample in here about prime modifier insurance, so you can reduce the amount of a attribute by 1 to increase another, right? So essentially, if you didn't get any 3s like this, then you can reduce one of the 2s I got to give the other 2 a 3. So that's kind of how this system is built in. Attribute limits, as you can also see on the playtest rules that are pulled up, increase by 5 for each level, so maximum of 20 levels, goes up by 1 every 5 levels, up to a maximum of 7 in any of those 4 attributes. Now the prime modifier is essentially whatever your highest attribute is, whether it's might, agility, charisma, or intelligence, whatever your highest one is, that is your prime modifier always. So if you have 3 charisma now, and then for whatever reason later down the road you have 4 intelligence and your charisma is still 3, your intelligence is your new prime modifier. So that fluctuates based on whatever the highest number is for your four attributes, and that's pretty interesting because I'm not the most knowledgeable on all the game systems that exist, but for me, this is something that really stood out. This is one of those things that I thought was really unique and that I really liked about the system, because one thing that I said before is that I like to roll the dice and let them decide. But if I really have in my mind I want to play a barbarian, and then I rolled the dice and I just didn't get a good matchup of numbers that would make sense for whatever reason, this would allow me to still be successful no matter where I put my three or my two or what have you. So this is a very useful thing, I think, for the system that can work well for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's also, I find it interesting because you can also use it as kind of a tool as your character progresses. So with that prompt modifier, like you said, it's always that the stat that you have the highest in, and it can change. So say you start your character out and you saw them as a charisma based character, and then as their story progresses, you think, no, I think intelligence is starting to represent more of them, and you start adding that value higher. Your prime modifier value will now swap to whatever is higher. So it also creates like a cool kind of way to get mechanical value out of a character's progression and roleplay.
Yeah, that's like ultimate character development, right? Like I
Yeah.
watch a lot of anime and stuff like that, and that's one thing that always hooks me is the character development. So same thing in the fantasy world. As your character grows, like Fry said, you actually feel that your character is growing in that aspect. So that's all we're going to cover in this initial video. Just wanted to do a quick intro to DC20 and the series, and target the first thing in the book essentially. Did want to end with some closing comments. So, Farai, do you have any comments specifically for anything that we covered in this video?
Um, I think the only thing, and this is more of like adding value to the playtest, right? Like as we read these, we want to give our opinions um,
Hmm.
about like kind of what we're playing. And I think for me, that prime modifier insurance that we were kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it might split later on because obviously this is one playtest material document. And it could swap between the player's handbook and the GM's book later on. But I would definitely
Right.
reserve that insurance tool, me personally, as a GM tool.
Hmm.
Because I think like as a player, there you might run into it's like very tempting, I would say, to be like, no, I'm just gonna do the reroll, or I'm just going to like have this. I didn't roll very well, so now I want this extra bump. I think
Hmm.
that should be up to the GM, kind of, is how I would put it.
Yeah, totally. I was funny enough. My comments were kind of the same with that. The modifier attributes, like with the insurance, right? I kind of naturally already did something similar. So I've not been a DM for many campaigns, but the one that I did, what I would like to do is anytime the characters had to roll for a skill, like whether it was your HP when you level up in D&D or something like that, I would always kind of roll like a secret number behind the screen, like for my own, and then like judge it based off of their reaction or their result. Like if it's really going to be something that's going to bother them and they're going to like linger on this, if I rolled a better number or an acceptable number, then I can offer them to switch it. So I would think with this, for example, with the rolling method for starting attributes, if they're going to roll 46 minus 3, I'm going to roll at least 1d6 minus 3 and kind of keep that pocket number. I may not let them know what it is, but if they want to take the gamble to swap one of their numbers with mine, then they can do that. But there's no takesy backsies. You can't be like, oh, never mind. The DM actually rolled a -2 and I swapped my 1 with it. But it adds a little bit of excitement in the game as well, and also helps
Yeah,
them
for
turn
sure.
that what might feel like a failure to them. It might help it turn that into like a fun mechanic where they can, okay, play off of that. And as a DM, it gives me a sense of like being a part of their character and like helping them create that character even more so, right? So
For sure, and yeah, but my advice is always never be afraid of a negative modifier. I feel like it's always a
yes,
fun.
embrace
I
it.
think I like negatives more than positives because that's where like the fun role
Yeah,
play comes from.
yeah. Some of the best characters come from those types of situations. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. That'll be this quick video, and then Again, please check the description and links that we're going to put down there for all of these resources. And also, please engage with us in the community, right? So, whether it's here on YouTube in the comments, or we are pretty active on the Reddit page, we've been posting some stuff in there. We'd love to engage with the community, hear your opinions, hear your thoughts, and obviously, if you like our videos, we love to see that you enjoy them. And we're going to be proactive in reaching out and connecting with the community so that we can really grow this together and hopefully make something bigger than ourselves. And one thing for me in my life, I like to connect with things that I enjoy doing, right? And so the more of that we have in the world, the better it is. So please help us recognize you as well as you recognize us. And we appreciate any videos you watch, like, share, but mostly the comments and the engagement and interaction is what I personally, truly, really hope to see. So, but
Absolutely. We're really excited to hear from y'all. And if you're familiar with the system, or if you after this you take a good read, let us know what you're excited about, what you're looking forward to, and what you'd like us to cover.
yeah. Until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.